friends, and welcome to another video. My name is Kathleen, and here on this side of the internet we talk about all things bookish, and this video is no different. Today I'm kickstarting a reading blog where I'm going to be reading two books that I picked up from the library that I thought were fascinating and couldn't wait to dig into. The first book is Filthy Rich Fae by Geneva Lee. I went to the library with a friend a little while back and she pointed this book out to me and she was like, you know what, I've heard good things about this, you should read it and let me know what you think. And I said, say less. Next up we have You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, which is by Akwaeke Emezi. And I have seen this book making its rounds on social media and everyone talking about how messy it kind of is. And I love messy. So I'm excited to dig into this book and see what it is all about. When it comes to which book to start first, I think I'm going to start with You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, because I just can't wait to dig into it and I just can't wait to get all the mess, all the drama, all the tea. So I will let you know once I get about 20% in and let you know my initial thoughts and let you know how things are going. Friends, popping in with an update for You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi. I am approximately, 25% of the way into this novel, and it is definitely packing an emotional punch. We are at the beginning of the story exploring Faye in this new phase of her life following this tragic accident that claimed the life of her husband, as she is navigating grief and on this healing journey. And due to her friend's kind of encouragement, she is taking a tentative step back into the dating pool, but she is wanting to do things her way. She doesn't want anything serious. She doesn't want emotions to be involved. She's looking for a purely physical, purely sexual connection and not really trying to get her emotions or feelings tangled up in that, mostly because, you know, she feels, I would imagine, guilt about moving forward in her life and pursuing a relationship or pursuing something with another man, because she's still tied up in with her husband Jonah and his loss and dealing with the complex feelings that comes with that. So we see her at the beginning of the story navigating that living singledom. You know, she's having this entanglement with a gentleman, I think, what is his name? Yeah, she's having this entanglement with this gentleman named Milan, and everything is going fine. It's very superficial. She's probably getting a little bit bored with it, but it's not that big of a deal. And then she happens to meet his friend Nasir, and Nasir and her develop this kind of connection. And as things fizzle out with Milan, she finds herself getting entangled with this kind of friendship, but it's a little bit of a situationship with Nasir, as he has been very plain and very clear that he wants to pursue a serious relationship with her and that he is very interested in her, and she has explored, or she has stated that she's not really open to a relationship right now, that she could do a friendship and see where things go, because she's still navigating life following the loss of her husband. But he and her develop this great friendship, and he mentions her to his very wealthy and very influential father about her art, and it lands her this opportunity of a lifetime. So she is going to travel with Nasir to his home country so that she can meet his father, and she gets the opportunity to pitch her art and see where that goes while having a vacation and spending some quality time with Nasir and seeing where things go. But things go awry as Faye begins to realize she is having this budding attraction towards Nasir's father, which is of course going to complicate things very much. So far, I'm really enjoying this story, and I empathize with Faye so very much, because I can't imagine the feelings that you have to navigate following the loss of a spouse and what that must feel like, what that is, especially under such tragic circumstances. Also, I get her need and desire to keep things very superficial and to not dig deep in these relationships, because it's more than she can handle. It's more than she can fathom at this point of her healing journey. Also, I think what's interesting as well for Faye, as we see her, and she kind of mentions at one point in the story that she hasn't really been pursuing men out of her attraction or desire for them. It's mostly come from the place that the men themselves have shown interest and attraction in her. And so she just kind of responds and goes with the flow, so to speak, and pantomimes having feelings for these people, pantomimes like the actions are going through the motions of pursuing a potential for a relationship or even just pursuing a fling with this person. But when she meets Nasir's father, that's when she notices for the first time in a long time since Jonah that she actually feels attracted and compelled to a person because of their presence, because of their energy, and because the way they carry themselves and the way that they look. And she's realizing that this is going to pose a problem. And I thought that that was so interesting. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I have a feeling it's going to get messy, it's going to get complex, it's going to get uncomfortable, and we're going to discover a lot and have a lot of, I think, cool explorations when it comes to grief, when it comes to healing, and especially as it pertains to spousal grief, because I do believe that Nasir's father also lost his wife a while back. So we're probably going to see how they connect over this shared experience. So yeah, I'm going to dive back into this and I will give you an update when I am 50% in this book. So hair short, chopped it all off. I'm not going to go over it too much because I'm doing multiple reading vlogs at one time. So it's going to be, my next few vlogs are going to be interesting because I'm starting them off with longer hair and then ending them with no hair. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting. But I'm here to pop in for an update for You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. I am approximately 53% into this book, and I am having a very thought-provoking, very reflective, and emotional time following Faye and her journey and all that she is going through right now. So Faye right now is a bit of a mess. She has a lot of conflicting emotions due to her attraction and connection to Nasir's father, Aleem, and it's clouding everything for her. She's questioning her true feelings and intentions for Nasir, and she's beginning to pull back and away from him. And while she doesn't want to necessarily go and pursue his father, she's trying to limit her contact with him, and it's not necessarily working because she is living in his house and they are running into each other and having exchanges, but there's that connection, there's that spark, there's that attraction, and it makes things a bit worse for her. It makes her feel like she's starting to grow feelings and she's really beginning to care for this man. And romantic entanglement aside, we still see her grappling with her grief and her identity and who she is at this phase in her healing process and at this phase in her life, living without her husband Jonah and navigating this. It is all interwoven throughout her art, is interwoven throughout how she is building and kind of existing within these friendships and these relationships and these connections with other people. And we see that she still isn't 100% like over Jonah, and she still isn't 100% like settled in her identity post Jonah, post the accident, post all of that trauma. She's still unraveling it. There's still this process she's going through with grief, which, to be honest, with my experience with grief, it is very much a slow evolution. It's something that you go through day by day by day, and it really does change you mentally. It changes you emotionally. It will impact how you act and show up in your relationships with other people. You're not thinking clearly. You're not making the best decisions. Your feelings are kind of getting all combobulated and mixed up. And I often wonder with Faye if this is happening with her. Like, a lot of these entanglements and these situations she's getting into, and even the attraction that she feels for Aleem, I'm wondering if this is kind of just part of that grieving process where it starts to get messy and you are just maybe feeling connections and clinging to people that are reminding you of the person that you lost. Or maybe it's just because you're just this amalgamation of mismatched emotions, and you're just trying to navigate everything, and you just are kind of going a little bit of everywhere. And I wonder if that is what is happening with Faye, and if this is really her, you know, developing a connection or developing an attraction, or if this is just part of her grieving process and her trying to make sense of everything. And on the other end of that, I also think that sometimes in life, and I wonder if this is her, kind of what's going on with her as well. Sometimes in life, we meet these bomb ass people and we develop these very intense kind of connections with them. I would say these soul connections. It's like you find your kindred spirit, your twin soul, and they're just very intense where this person reflects you back to yourself. They are like a mirror, and you connect with them and you can talk with them, and you have the same vibe. You've gone through the same things. You have the same trauma. And it's really like having an external version of yourself represented back to you. And I think that what if this is something that she's also going through as well? Because it's not necessary, I think, all the times with these kind of like soul connections that they necessarily develop into a romantic entanglement or a romantic partnership or relationship. It could just be a very beautiful platonic relationship. And I'm not saying that if she really does, I'm not saying that she should discount her attraction or what have you should be discounted to Aleem because of maybe it being a connection, or she shouldn't pursue it or whatever. Why? Because I don't know what she's doing, to be honest. I don't know where this is going to go. But I'm just saying, I wonder if that is something that maybe she could maybe think through and see, and just see where that takes her. And that maybe this is her time and her season she's not really ready to date again. And she just really does need to be on her own for a time, because I can only imagine what it's like unpacking grief and loss when you have lost your spouse. Especially at so young of an age, when you were expecting to live your whole life together. But I don't even think age has anything to do with it. I think that that's a traumatizing and very painful and gutting experience, regardless if you were newlyweds and freshly married, or if you've been together for 50 years. Losing your spouse and your life partner when you are desperately in love with them and that you've done life together and you have memories with this person, whether it's for a short time or a long time, is devastating. And it's messy. And I think it's one of those things that you shouldn't rush back into dating because of that, because you are going to be a bit of a mess. You are going to maybe hurt people's feelings trying to figure out what the next steps are, because dating other people is going to feel weird, because you're going to inevitably compare them, the person you're dating, to your deceased partner. And that's going to create some situations. That's going to create problems. That's going to create confusion. That's going to create bitterness. And I just think it's messy. And I'm just feeling like that's what's going on here. It's a lot of mess and drama because this woman is still fresh in the grieving process. And while there's not really anything concrete even with Nasir, and they're just talking about we're friends first, it's obvious that this man has some vested feelings and emotions for this woman way beyond friendship. And that's putting a lot of pressure and responsibility on her, because she, is in this fragile state. She is trying to figure out what her life and what her future is going to be post Jonah. And she does feel this connection with Nasir's dad. And it's such a messy, crazy, wild experience. But even with that, she's trying to build her career and make her mark as an artist and step forth into that world, into that industry, and trying to find her identity following the loss of her husband. It's just a lot that she has going on. My girl really needs to just be alone for a little bit and do some deep therapy and work through this trauma, and maybe not worry about these men right now, and then see what happens after that. See where her head is at, where her heart is at after that. Do some do some meditative time by herself with no one in her ear. Because she's a little bit all over the place. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this though. It is such an emotional, thoughtful, and just, I don't want to say heavy because I don't feel like the book is like excessively heavy, but it's definitely thought-provoking, and I can just imagine what she's going through, grieving the loss of her spouse, because I can only imagine how much of a hot mess express I would be. So that is where we're at in this. I will check in with you and let you know what's up when I get to the about 70 to 80% update. And we are going to keep trucking along with this book. All right, friends. So I just a little bit ago finished You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. And what a phenomenal book. I really enjoyed that book. It was so well crafted, so well done, so very well explored. It's such an interesting, I found Faye's journey through and dealing with and grappling with spousal grief to be such an interesting and reflective journey. It was very raw. It was very, I feel like, honest to her experience as she's trying to figure out and navigate what her life is going to look like without her life partner, and reckoning with the reality that the future that she had planned for herself is no longer viable. It's no longer something that is going to unfold, and grappling with that realization and the grief that comes with that realization over and over and over again as she continues to experience these first and experience all these different things, minus this life partner that she thought that she was going to be experiencing them with. And I found that to be so real and so honest, such a real and honest reflection of the grieving process and the grieving journey, and how it's never ending, really. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed also how this book challenged me when it comes to thinking about love and relationships and what's right and what's wrong, and, you know, what's taboo, and pushing those boundaries between social norms and bonds and relationships and situationships and friendships, and how it kind of explored that in such a real and honest way. And I really appreciated that they didn't make it just this primal sexual thing. It was really about a true soul connection with another being. And it wasn't just more of a sexual kind of thing, which it's fine if that's always fine. That's everyone's preference. But I really liked that they didn't sexualize this romance, since there was a significant age gap, and they made it more about an emotional and mental and like spiritual connection that made it, I don't know, that made it more interesting and more, I feel, real to me. Yeah, and that really, we really went there with this, and I thought that it was so fascinating. I guess like some things that I kept continually thinking throughout the book was just how Nasir was acting so very proprietary over Faye, and that really bothered me. A lot of the references that he was making in regards to things that were going down, I found that to be quite interesting. How quickly he turned their friendship into something where he had a right to, or ownership, or over her. And he had like the kind of like this thing that guys get where it's like first dibs on this person, and he didn't see her as a full, complete individual with her own like thoughts, dreams, and desires. And him kind of alluding to maybe she was leading him on, maybe she had some ulterior motives, and I just found that interesting. That was also an interesting exploration of their kind of friendship and their situationship as well. I found that to be quite fascinating, seeing just how Nasir was, how he reacted, how it felt kind of like, not that I'm saying it wasn't warranted for him to feel some type of way about the situation, but I just felt that a lot of the things that he was saying and the way that he was acting was so out of pocket for what he was saying in the beginning and how he was in the beginning. But I thought that was interesting. I thought all of this whole book was such an interesting exploration of love and relationships and grief and moving on and finding healing. And everything I felt was handled in such a real way, but it wasn't. I felt everything was handled in a very real and mature way where there wasn't a lot of miscommunication. People were actually communicating and saying their feelings and using their words and having a difficult and progressive and adult conversations. And I appreciated so much that Aleem was also pushing for this and not just like having this attitude of I'm doing what I'm doing and F anybody that disagrees. But he was open to like communicating and like talking about things and working through things. And I don't know, that made this so much more of a powerful and unique book. And like I said, since it wasn't centering on purely sexual attraction, and that was a part of it, of course, but it was actually primarily about their emotional, mental, and like spiritual connection with one another. It just made it that much more powerful and that much more meaningful to me, and not just some trite little tryst or romance book. And it made it easier for me to believe in and root for this very messy but very unique relationship because of that. I found the writing also to be wonderful. It felt very real. It was very, I don't know, approachable, invited you in. I loved being in Faye's mind and understanding her thoughts, understanding her process, understanding her feelings, and why she was being the way that she was being, why she was making the choices that she was making. I really enjoyed learning more about Faye and getting a glimpse and a taste of what spousal grief could look like and seeing that perspective. So this book for me was a winner. Definitely, this is going to be an author for me to watch because I had a fabulous time with this. I gave it 4 fabulous stars, and I am going to right away start exploring and looking for more books by this author because this was really, really good. So there's that. Next up, I have to read Filthy Rich Faye by Geneva Lee. I don't have the paperback anymore because I had to turn that in because somebody was waiting for it and I was like, whatever. So I do have the audiobook and I will be reading that via audiobook, and I will be starting that fairly soon. And once I get 20% into that audiobook, I will slide in and give you another update. Okay, I'm gonna get my last stuff. Hello, friends. I'm here to jump in and give you a little update on Filthy Rich Faye by Geneva Lee. I had to turn the library book, but I don't know if I said this before, but I had to turn the library book for Filthy Rich Faye back in because it was due and there was a person waiting in line for it. And we don't want to be that person. We want to share and borrow library books responsibly. But I was able to get this on audio, and I am about 29% of my way in the audiobook. And I don't know. It's okay. At the beginning, I kind of wasn't really vibing with it at first. I don't know, something about the female protagonist that was just irritating me. That I just wasn't having a good time, like being in her head and like reading from her. And I don't know. Maybe it was just me trying to figure her out, trying to see just what kind of person she was and just kind of get comfortable with the story. And I feel like now that I've gotten a little bit further along in the story, I've gotten a little bit more comfortable. And I've kind of figured out kind of who she is and gotten a lay of the situation and how everything is going in this story, that I'm starting to dig it and become more intrigued and like it a little bit more. So I did not read the synopsis, but just from the little bit that I've read in Filthy Rich Fae. Okay, so I didn't dive into the synopsis for this novel, kind of went in a little blind. So in this story, we are following Kate, who is a nurse at this hospital in New Orleans, Louisiana. And it's basically run by this notorious kind of gangster family called the Gages. And everyone knows to avoid the Gages and to not get involved with them and to not work for them, because like basically it would be signing over your life to them, because they take no prisoners and they are serious about their business. And this one night, her adopted brother comes in with a gun injury, and she finds out that he's actually been linked with working with the Gages and that he owes them a debt. And she is desperate to try to fix this for him, because he is the last remaining family that she has, as her adopted grandmother recently passed away, and he is all that she has left, and she will do anything for her brother, for his safety, for his well-being, and so that he can like function and live the best life. So she sets out determined to go and pay off his debt, thinking that it's a financial debt, but it actually isn't. And she ends up getting kind of like caught up in making this bargain where she says to Lachlan Gage, who is the head of this syndicate, that she will trade her soul in exchange for her brother's safety, and to erase his debt and to not have anything to do with the Gage family. And he takes her up on that offer, but it's not exactly what she thought and not exactly what it seems. And she is swept into the world of the Fae, and she is embroiled with them and their intrigue and their mysteriousness and all that's going down and all that happens. And we're basically seeing them get to know each other, and her becoming increasingly frustrated while she's also attracted to this man, and trying to untangle and make sense of her emotions, while also trying to do what she can to honor this kind of like vow or commitment that she's made for her brother's safety, while also trying to find a way to get out of this vow and commitment so that she's not beholden to this Fae man. And it's interesting. It has gotten a bit more interesting. I've gotten used to her. I think she's very different, and she thinks differently and she acts differently. And it's just a different kind of perspective and a way of kind of interacting and existing in the world than mine. She's very emotional, very rash, very impulsive, and she kind of just jumps and does things, and she doesn't really necessarily think things through when she just does them and puts herself in some very awkward, not very good positions. So that took some getting used to, kind of her rashness and her lack of like critical thinking and just reacting really impulsively and really emotionally. But it is making for an interesting story. She is interesting. Lachlan Gage, of course, he is our interesting, dark Fae guy. Mysterious, ruggedly, wickedly handsome. So yeah, I think this is going to be a silly, goofy, fun time. And I'm looking forward to getting back into it. I will check back in when I get to 50% and let you know what my feelings and what my thoughts on this story is when I get to that point. Okay, hello, my beautiful friends. So I was just reviewing the footage for this reading vlog, and I realized I never, I never gave my thoughts on Filthy Rich Fae, and let you know about the conclusion. So yeah, let's do that. So when it comes to Filthy Rich Fae, I really enjoyed this novel more than I thought that I would, because I just picked this up randomly at the library when I was there with my friend and my husband, and I was just like, sure, I'll read it. This sounds interesting. But I ended up enjoying this more than I thought that it would. I do remember me telling you in the beginning that I had a little bit of a struggle getting kind of into the story, and I found it a little bit difficult to not necessarily relate to, but like the main character, Kate. I found her to be a little bit, we weren't vibing in the beginning. But as the story progressed and as things unfolded and as she became more fleshed out as a character, I did really fall in love with her. I fell in love with the story. I really enjoyed the romance. It was this perfect slow burn romance that has this angst and kind of like longing and this perfect enemies to lovers dynamic. I enjoyed Lachlan and how he was just so fierce and was this I'll burn the world down for her kind of character. I'm a sucker for like alpha hole kind of like touch her and you'll die men. Love that trope when it comes to romance. So I really enjoyed that. I ended up landing on a 4 stars for this book, or what was it? Did I land on a 4-star? Yeah, I ended up landing on 4 stars for this novel, and I have already gone out and purchased the second installment, which is Filthy Rich Faith Fall in Court. That was recently released this year, so I need to get into that and see what happens, because this book does finish on a cliffhanger, and it leaves a lot of little questions. And I got a lot of little answers. And I have a lot of little theories because I've clocked some stuff that was happening in this book that I'm kind of like, wait a minute. What are you setting up, Miss Geneva Lee? What are you trying to say? So I cannot wait to see how everything shakes up in the next installment of this. And I also want to explore the other books in kind of like this world. I do believe this series started off with the Filthy Rich Vampires, so I want to go back and read the backlist of those because all of it sounds really interesting, and I'm having a fabulous good time with this. So yeah, 4 fabulous stars. Had a great time with this. Looking forward to reading the next installment and more from Miss Geneva Lee's backlist. But that is all for this reading blog. It was a great reading blog. We had some really good picks in this, from You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, which that was an amazing novel. Really appreciated and enjoyed a lot of what was talking about and the complexities of that novel, and really enjoyed Filthy Rich Fae. Besides it being just a really fun, funky, fresh kind of romantasy with a lot of dark and heavy topics and themes, it really felt like a really good, well-rounded romantasy, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, that is all for this reading blog. I hope that you enjoyed it. Have you read these books? Let me know what you thought about them. Have you already read Filthy Rich Fae Fall in Court? Let me know what you think, but don't spoil it. Don't spoil it for me. But let me know what you think in the comments below. And make sure that you hit that notification bell and that you subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.